Hey, it's Jake here, and today we're playing Depression Quest. And before we get started, I want to go ahead and give a warning that this game is about depression and facing it. And also, second warning, I'm not that good at reading. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. It is early on a Monday morning. You are a mid-20s human being. You have a significant other named Alex, who you are rather fond of, that you have been seeing exclusively for the past few months. The rest of your social circle consists of a variety of friends and acquaintances, some of whom you met at your day job, which is a little boring but pays rent. You'd like to be doing more with your life, as with your parents, but you're still in the process of figuring out what that means and how to go about it. You are dealing with motivational issues, and that sometimes makes it dealing with these things difficult. You feel like this is probably your fault, and on bad days can feel inwardly angry and down on yourself for being lazy. But you're not quite sure how you can break out of it or how other people deal with these feelings and seem so very functional. You spend a lot of nights fixating on and thinking about this, but never seem to do anything about it other than lose sleep. I'm already not enjoying where this is going. It is an unseasonably warm Wednesday evening. You've spent the past several hours at work. The past week or so, you found your job motivation flagging more than usual. You've been in a fog practically all day today, simply going through the motions without realizing even what you're doing half the time. And yet time seemed to be moving at half speed. You're so checked out that when your boss approaches you to tell you that it's dead and you can go home early, it barely registers. As you walk home, the streets hiss from the rainfall. You know that your significant other will be in classes until late, another couple hours at least. You briefly consider using the serendipitous solitude to catch up on that project that you've been working on haphazardly for the past few months. As soon as you think about work that awaits you at home, you can feel the panic creeping in from the back of your brain, unbidden. All you can think about is how incredibly far behind you are, and the amount of work seems nothing less than insurmountable. By the time you've arrived at home and changed out your uncomfortable work clothes, the stress has been weighing down on you like a heavy, wet wool blanket. Your computer seems to be staring you down from your desk. You want to sit down and work, but the mere thought of trying to work sends your stress levels flying. More than anything, you feel suddenly and absolutely exhausted, and feel a strong desire to simply hide in bed. Do you? Let's make some choices. Man. Do you reluctantly sit down at your desk and try to make yourself do something? Turn on the TV telling yourself you need just a quick half an hour to unwind from work? Crawl into bed. You're so stressed and overwhelmed you couldn't possibly accomplish anything anyways. And order some food, grab a drink, and hunker down for a night of work is not really an option. So I think what we'll do is turn on the TV and tell yourself that we'll get to work in half an hour. And watch Netflix. Not a sponsor. Just half an hour of TV, you tell yourself, absently grasping for the remote. You don't so much sit down on the couch as sink into it. You turn on the TV and start going through your usual channel routine. After a few cycles of this, you realize that you're really not doing much more than thumb calisthenics and absently killing time. You check the clock and see that it's over 20 minutes have already passed since you sat down. As your self-imposed time limit creeps ever nearer, you become more and more anxious. You stand up and walk to the fridge, telling yourself, I'll just make a quick sandwich and get to work right after that. Can't be productive on an empty stomach, right? Right. As you eat, you start pacing around your apartment, heading past your bedroom in the process. You stop in the doorway as if physically unable to cross the threshold. Familiar waves of exhaustion start racking on you, and you feel simultaneously tired and panicked. You close your door and head to the back of the couch. It's still early yet, you tell yourself. As long as I get to work in an hour, I'll have plenty of time to be productive. As you flip channels and let the CSI and Jeopardy reruns wash over you, you sink deeper into the couch, feeling at once encroached upon and shielded by, being quite literally swallowed up by it. As the second hours draw near, sure enough, you find yourself getting anxious and jittery. You repeat the fridge-paced couch process a couple more times before you look at the clock and realize that several hours have passed, and not surprisingly, you've managed to get no work done. You crawl into bed acutely aware of the fact that you have to work in the morning and that any opportunity you had to catch up on your creative endeavors today was squandered. You feel so disgusted with yourself that when Alex calls to talk to you on her way home from class, you simply say that you had a really rough day at work and that you're trying to rest up before your shift tomorrow. She says she understands and wishes you a good night, though you can't help but notice that she sounds slightly disappointed. Ironically, the stress of potentially upsetting your partner compounds with the stress of not have gotten anything done this evening and the stress having to go into work tomorrow. The buzzing of anxiety in your brain melts together with your body's utter and physical exhaustion, and you sink into a hypnagogic, anxious funk, too tired to try to work, but too anxious to fall asleep for several hours. You are very depressed. You spend a large amount of time sleeping, hating yourself, and have very little energy or motivation. You are not currently seeing a therapist. You are not currently taking medication for depression. Alright. Next. It is a mild Friday afternoon. Alex calls you from one of her classes telling you that there's going to be a really awesome birthday party tonight at her apartment that one of her roommates is throwing. You've hung out with this roommate a few times with Alex and you got along well enough but aren't particularly close. You don't have to work in the morning and have nothing else in particular to do tonight. You are feeling kind of run down, but you have been fatigued most of the time lately. You mention that you're feeling ill because you're not sure how else to explain those feelings to someone else and say that you aren't sure that you can make it tonight. There's a second of silence over your phone, but you can swear you hear the sound of your partner's face fall. She tries to convince you anyway. You haven't seen her this week, and she sounds pretty insistent that you come over. She even drops a few suggestive worded hints that you can stay over with them tonight after the party. What do you do? Shake off your funk and go have a good time with your girlfriend, which is not an option. Agree to go. Say that you're really just not feeling well and can't make it. Well, we disappointed her last night. So what we're going to go ahead and do, I would say, is to agree to go. And some Pabst Blue Ribbon. You agree to go even though you're not really feeling social. You know it's important to Alex and you really like to see her. Seeing her does make you feel better sometimes, and you hope that in this case tonight, even if it does mean dealing with the usual social anxiety. The time to leave rolls around and you grab your overnight bag. Alex's apartment is a short walk away and there are already people hanging out on the porch. You feel your chest tighten as you approach the building and try to steel your nerves. You quickly find your partner chatting away with the birthday girl, and Alex immediately lightens up when she sees you. "I'm so happy you came! I wasn't sure if you were going to make it!" A young man taps her on the shoulder and she turns back to you to apologize and let you know they have to do something for the party. Alex hands you a beer and plants a kiss on your cheek before going to deal with whatever came up. As you look around, you don't see anyone else you recognize. Our next part is to awkwardly stand in the same spot, unsure of what else to do. Put your bag in Alex's room and avoid the crowd in there for a while. Cling to the back wall, sip your beer, and wait for your girlfriend to return. Proceed to drink in earnest, hoping it makes you less uncomfortable. Let's go put our bag in Alex's room. I think that's a good idea. You take your beer and shift through the crowd until you arrive at Alex's room. The room is actually empty of the other partygoers, and you sit on her bed as you set your bag down. Thankful for the personal space and the feeling of a lot less claustrophobic, you mess around on your phone while you sip your beer. You keep telling yourself you'll go back out in 5 more minutes, but every time the time rolls around to go back out, you feel the panic creep in, and you stay rooted to the spot. You figure no one here knows you anyway, so it's unlikely you'll be missed. A few minutes later, Alex comes into the room. Oh, there you are. I was wondering... Sorry. Oh, there you are. I was wondering where you'd gone off to. I figured I might find you here. She sits down on the bed next to you, buzzed enough to be slurring slightly. I'm really glad you turned up tonight. To be honest, I really didn't think you'd show. It's really cool you did. Really. You know she meant it lovingly, but you're not quite sure how you feel about the statement. That voice is actually really hard to do. It's a little afternoon on a muggy Saturday. Your mother has come over for a surprise visit, claiming loudly that she doesn't see you enough, so she's decided to invite herself over. As you converse, she walks around your place, and you get the distinct impression that you are being inspected. So what's going on with you lately? She asks abruptly. Taken somewhat aback by this left fielder, you tell her that you're not sure what she means. She repeats the question, saying that you haven't seemed like yourself lately. She gestures to the dirty dishes piled up in the sink and notes the fact that you haven't called her or visited in a while. Your reticence only seems to spur her on more. She presses you, asking if you're having problems at work or with Alex, and you're beginning to feel increasingly battered by her sudden, well-meaning but overwhelming inquisition. I'm sorry, I have some trouble with some words. Under her questions, you become increasingly uncomfortable. You want to be able to explain to her how you've been feeling, but the truth is that you are not really sure yourself. Nothing horrific has happened at work or with your significant other or friends or anything like that. But all the same, you can't deny that lately you've felt drained and as though you're not really here. You wish you could tell your mother these things, but she hasn't been approached about negative emotions in the past. She is the kind of person who holds the opinion that the solution to any problem is to simply try harder and maintain a positive attitude, a stance that has reared its head in the past conversations when you've begun to explore the subject with her. You know she's unlikely to be understanding, and you feel the energy drain out of you when you imagine what would happen if you managed to blurt out everything you were feeling. What do? Do we try to be honest with her anyway? Tell her that everything is fine and thanks for her asking? Change the subject. I, in this situation, would probably continue with the everything is fine, but thanks for asking. I'm okay, Mom, really. But thanks for worrying about me. Your mother looks at you from across the room with furrowed brows, and you wonder if the tone in your voice was the least bit convincing. She slightly opens her mouth as though she's about to say something more, but instead she digs through her purse for her cell phone, having apparently decided against it. Well, as long as you're okay, honey, her voice trails. As your mother returns to what amounts to more or less small talk, you realize that this part of the conversation has happened a lot recently. Someone will express concern for you, or ask if you're okay, or out of seemingly nowhere. You tend to find that it's simpler just to declare that you're okay than find the right words for complicated and murky feelings. Besides, since none of them are in reaction to a specific event, maybe you really are okay and just complaining about nothing anyway. Sometimes when you insist that you're okay to those who ask, you have to wonder if you're trying to convince them or yourself. This is getting pretty deep. It is a lazy Sunday morning. You are idly clicking around online as your phone rings. Sam, a co-worker of yours that you're friendly with, asks how you are and makes hurried small talk with you. You typically only ever talk to him on the phone when one of you needs a shift covered, so it's slightly awkward. You're waiting in anticipation for him to ask you to come in on short notice when he veers the conversation in a completely different direction. "How do you feel about cats?" he asked. "Mine had kittens a few weeks ago, and I'm having an awfully hard time finding a home for the last one in the litter. You don't have any pets, right?" It takes a moment to process. Oh, there's a hair on my nose. Oh. Sorry. It takes a moment to process this new information, and you're caught off guard as he begins earnestly trying to sell you the idea of taking the last kitten off his hands. It's not something that you've specifically considered before, but he seems fairly insistent. "She's a real sweetheart, really loves people. She's got all her shots already taken care of, and the vet said she's healthy as a horse. I can bring her over by your place tonight if you're interested." You look around your apartment and try to picture a cat in it as he continues to tell you about how cute she is. You tell him that this is all kind of sudden and that you don't have anything for a kitten set up here. "Oh, don't worry about that. I can bring over a litter box and food and all that since you'd be really helping me out in a fix. It's the least I could do. I just don't want to have to put her in a shelter." You can't help but feel like you're being guilt-tripped, but you decide to give it some serious consideration. It does get awfully lonely in around your apartment, and it might feel less empty with the cat around. However, since you've been feeling so down, it might not be a good idea to take on the responsibility of a cat, even if it's fairly low maintenance. What do you do? Well, take the cat, knowing full well that you can take great care of it, which is not an option. Decline, even though you'd be totally capable of taking care of it. You're not much of a cat person. Become a cat owner. You could use the companionship. And two declines. You're not in a good enough place to be taking on more responsibility right now. You don't like cats. I will become a cat. A kitty? Oh, that is the cutest little kitty ever. You accept the offer of a kitten and hang up shortly after making arrangements for when your coworker can drop her off tonight. You're not entirely sure what to expect, and you spend the rest of the afternoon researching cat care online and trying to think of a name. The evening rolls around, and you hear a knock at the door, startling yourself out of reading Wikipedia entirely too hard. You take possession of a small, terrified black and white kitten in a carrier. Freaking, that's adorable. So cute. Along with everything you need to start taking care of her. And you take her into your bedroom, close the door, and open the door to the carrier excitedly. She cowers in the back of it, and you back off. Feeling slightly defeated, you remember what you researched on introducing a kitten to a new home and leave her alone to go mess around on your computer, hopefully checking over your shoulder every so often to see if she has come out yet. She hides inside her carrier, periodically making startled cat howls long enough for you to start worrying that she already doesn't like you. But by the time you go to bed, she's curled up at the foot of it, eyeing you nervously before falling asleep. Over the next few days, you gain her trust, and she begins affectionately following you around, sleeping on you, and hopping up on you anytime you sit down to do some work. That's adorable as well. I love kitties. It's late Friday afternoon, and quitting time is just around the corner. A bright, clear day is giving way to a still, temperate evening. You can hear your coworkers all around you anxiously making plans for their evenings and weekends. But you're really looking forward to just going home and resting after what's turned out to be a very long and taxing work week. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Just before the end of your shift, you get a call from Alex. It seems a group of your mutual friends are headed out to a nearby pub for dinner and drinks to celebrate the end of a week, and they want to know if you'd like to come along. You tentatively tell her that you're emotionally exhausted from the work week and that social outgoing like that will just take too much out of you today. You encourage her to go out and have a good time, since you know it's been a while since she's gone out with friends. But your effort feels futile, since you know that she isn't going to go without you. A couple of hours later, the two of you find yourselves in a familiar position, on the couch, watching comedy shows on Netflix, a box of pizza open on the coffee table in front of you. As you look across the couch at her, you start to feel anxious. You feel bad about effectively forcing the two of you to stay in tonight again. While you are always appreciative of your partner's efforts to take your feelings into the account and help to make sure you're socially comfortable, you sincerely worry that you're holding her back from enjoying a more fulfilling relationship. While she does seem to enjoy spending time with you, as the two of you sit in comfortable, almost contented silence watching old TV shows the two of you have seen 2 or 3 times before, your ever-increasing fear that your relationship is becoming one-sided weighs more and more heavily on you. You feel more than ever like a burden or a ward to her, and it's virtually impossible for you to see what value you could possibly offer her in return. Worst of all, this nagging fear has made you feel more self-conscious than ever. Withdrawing ever inwards, you've started to pull away even from Alex herself. What do you do? You know, despite the bad times, your girlfriend sincerely loves you. Relationships are a two-way street, and you have to resolve to always be there for her like she has been for you, which is not an option, which is an option I really like. Tell Alex how important she is to you and enjoy your evening, another great option. Ask Alex if she's happy with your relationship. Don't say anything you've already worried about her. Key to a good relationship is communication, so let's communicate. And now I am legitimately nervous. You look over at Alex, who hasn't noticed you watching her yet, and you try to parse the expression on her face. You worry that it's one of sheer boredom and bare tolerance. You wonder if she's thinking about all the fun things she could have been doing tonight if she wasn't trapped on this couch with you, ordering from one of the same 3 takeout places that you've always ordered from. A sense of disappointing her creeps over you as you picture what the night could have been if you had just accepted the invitation she had made earlier. I know this is a pretty boring Friday night for you. Are you really happy being with me? Being like this? She turns to look at you, forehead wrinkled. Why do you ask me that so often? Sorry. I'm gonna just read normally. You feel her body stiffen as you pull away from yours just a little. Well, I mean, you start, but are unable to try and think of how to answer. I'm just gonna read the options that are actually feasible. I know it's not what you'd usually be up to. I don't know, I guess I get kind of worried that you're getting bored sometimes, or never mind. I'm gonna go ahead and say, I don't know, that's hard. I know it's not what you would usually be up to. Come on, Alex. I know it's not what you'd usually be up to. Alex frowns. What do you mean by that? I just mean, you usually like going out and doing things, partying and stuff, you know. She sighs and falls against the couch. It's not like I want to do those things all the time. I like nights in too, just like everyone else. She turns to you, frustration wearing on her face. Sometimes I swear it feels like you don't know me at all. It's not that, your voice trails off, and you notice that she has an exasperated look on her face that you have seen once or twice when you have conversations like this. Conversations where you're poorly expressing your self-doubt and insecurity, seeking reassurance, but really feeling like you're making things worse. She sighs again, this time louder, turning towards the flickering screen. I like spending time with you, okay? If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. The annoyed tone in her voice makes you think otherwise, but you take it as a sign that you should probably drop it for now, and you feel badly for upsetting things. This game is pretty sad. It's a breezy Sunday afternoon. You've allowed Amanda, an old friend from school, that is in town for the weekend, to talk. that is in for the weekend to talk you into leaving the house for a coffee and catch up. You meet her in a small cafe and talk about what you've been up to since the last time you've seen each other, and you can't help but feel like they're a lot more accomplished and interesting than you are while you listen to them while they talk about their life after school. When it's your turn to brief them in on your activities, you feel anxious and ashamed and give a very abbreviated version. You try to talk about your job as little as possible, and you feel incredibly boring while you describe it, despite her expressing sincere interest in you and your life. Amanda has known you long enough to read your mood and tone of voice. She leans in to ask a question while gently touching your hand, a look of genuine concern on her face. What's wrong? Do you test the waters and open up a little, hoping she'll understand, insist that nothing is wrong and change the subject, defensively ask what she means by that, notice that your hands are shaking? Should we test the waters? I'm kind of nervous. We'll test the waters. Oh, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Though you find it hard to lay out how you're feeling lately to other people, you decide to test the waters on opening up to Amanda. She's always been easy to talk to, and you feel like it's possible that she might be understanding of what's been going on with you, even if you think it doesn't make sense sometimes. You begin to dance around the subject, dipping your toe into the pool to test the water. Surprisingly, she catches on quickly and is even able to guess what you may say next. She asks the right questions, leading you to elaborate on your emotional state. You apologize profusely the entire time, feeling like you're being obnoxious, but she reassures you that you aren't burdening her. Amanda reveals to you that her mother suffers from clinical depression, and that she has spent many nights talking her through very similar feelings. She mentions that therapy and medication have helped her tremendously and suggests you give it a try. You fight it and feel somewhat like a charity case, but she tells you that she'll get the number of her mother's therapist and email it to you as soon as she can. Afterward, conversation drifts back to small talk and shared hobbies, and you spend a pleasant afternoon together. For the rest of the day, you find yourself wondering if therapy or medication can really help you. If you have an illness or are simply complaining too much, and remember your horror stories you've heard about antidepressants. You're not sure about what to do if she remembers to email you the number of the therapist. You secretly hope that she'll forget about it so you can avoid dealing with it at all. Alright. I think for a game that I'm not very good at reading, I'm doing alright. It is a glaringly sunny Monday, and one of the few days your brother Malcolm is in town and free long enough for you two to actually see each other. You have a dental appointment that day, but you make plans for him to pick you up afterward. Your appointment takes a little longer than expected because your dentist tells you that you've been grinding your teeth in your sleep to a worrying degree. Given how nearly everything in your life has been feeling enormous and stressful lately, this doesn't come as a surprise to you. He suggests that you try to reduce the stress levels and fits you for a night guard. It feels awkward and too big for your mouth, and you feel embarrassed looking at your puffed out face in the mirror with it. You finish up the appointment in a hurry and leave about half an hour overdue for meeting your always punctual brother in the parking lot. You finish up as quickly as possible and leave the building to scan the parking lot for your brother's car, but you don't see his old Civic anywhere. You pass by a blue Camaro and jump as it beeps at you, causing you to jump in surprise. It takes you a moment for to realize it, but it's Malcolm in the driver's seat. You hop in the passenger seat and compliment him on his new ride, and he mentions that it's a perk of his promotion he's recently obtained at work. He starts telling you about how much more money he's making, how his career is really taking off, and how he's started to look at houses with his wife soon. You clutch the bag containing the night guard in your hand, and you feel yourself clench your teeth as you think of your crummy apartment and how long it's been since you've been able to take the day off work without having to worry about making ends meet. He's only 2 years older than you, but it feels like he's eons ahead of you in every other aspect of your lives. So, he asks, how did your appointment go? Did you get drilled full of holes or what? A sense of shame creeps over you. Do we tell him about the night guard and why you need it? Lie and tell him it was a routine cleaning. Tell him about your tooth grinding problem, but not the stress causing it. We'll tell him about the night guard. Oh wait, and why you need it. We'll tell him about it, but not the stress, which doesn't seem like the best idea, but probably something I would have done. The dentist said, I'm apparently grinding my teeth too much when I sleep. Oh? Malcolm replies. Been stressed out lately, kiddo? Deciding that you don't really want to go into it, you tell him that you don't think it's the case and it's probably just a random thing. He doesn't pry farther and instead begins reminiscing with you about the time you chipped your baby tooth because he accidentally knocked you over once. You go out to dinner and catch up on things, but you still feel somewhat distracted by the gnawing anxiety in the back of your mind. Though you enjoy your brother's company, you still feel like you want nothing more than to go home and hide from the world tonight. It becomes hard for you to try to stuff all of your horrible feelings down and go emotionless when someone like the dentist can see a fraction of what goes on inside your head. It leaves you feeling embarrassed and weak, and you hate yourself for feeling that way. You wonder if you're really fooling anyone into thinking you're a normal person, and then wonder if your brother knows and is hanging out with you out of pity tonight. After he drops you back off at your apartment, you throw the night guard out. You can't stand to even look at the thing. It says, screw the night guard. Something I did with my old retainer. Actually. Well, I lost it, but that's beside the point. It's a dry Sunday morning. You grab your morning coffee and scoot your rapidly growing kitten off the chair and, despite her protests, sit down at your desk to check your email. A new message pops up in your inbox almost as soon as you do. It's from Amanda, and you remember your meeting in the cafe and awkwardly bringing up your feelings to her. Subject: Hey buddy. Body: Hey, sorry it's been a few weeks. I meant to get this to you sooner, but it took a while for me to get a hold of my folks back home. Dad told me to say hi, by the way. Anyway, I remembered what we talked about, and last time I saw you, I hope you aren't insulted, but I asked my mom for the number for a therapist. Don't worry, I didn't tell her who it was for. I think she's worried about me now, though. Haha. Anyway, the number is 647-723-5274. It's a really good office. You should look into it. Talking to someone never hurts. If you're worried about money, don't be. They are one of the few that has a really good sliding scale fee system and won't charge you if you can't afford. I hope you're feeling better. It was really nice to see you again. A. It's still early enough that you could call and make an appointment today. Your kitten curls up in your lap as you consider what to do. Oh, the kitty. I love the kitty. Do we ever come up with a name for it? We're gonna name it Maximilian the kitten. So do we sleep on it and see how you're feeling in the morning? You're not keen on the idea at all, but you don't want to disappoint the Amanda. Close the email without thinking about it. This has been embarrassing enough already. Let's sleep on it with the kitten in our laps. Because we couldn't make the appointment today, I don't think. The thought of picking up the phone and calling someone about this right now is overwhelming. Sure, you're having a hard time lately and have motivation issues, but are you really in need of therapy? Shouldn't you be able to get over yourself? What if they put you on medication that makes you feel like a zombie? What if you go and the therapist looks down on you? What will Alex think about this? Trying to think about all these things at once makes it feel like a very big deal. And if you decide to ever take your time to think on it, the rest of the day passes quickly, and the night and that night you have a hard time trying to sleep because your brain is too busy thinking of all these things, and it's hard to get any rest that night. The next morning you check your email again with blurry eyes and a mewing kitten. Amanda's email is still there, seemingly waiting for you. You are no more decided than you were yesterday. What now? Just call already. It can't hurt to check it out. Call after wrestling with it for a few minutes longer. Don't call. Let's call after wrestling it. In reality, that's probably the best option, the option we should shoot for. You read through Amanda's emails 2 or 3 times, then sit and stare at your computer for a while the memory of the uncomfortable conversation makes you feel newly embarrassed and self-conscious. Part of you is also encouraged by the fact that she cared enough to talk to you at all. Sitting in front of your computer, you start to question things like whether or not Amanda sent this number out of pity or perhaps some sense of obligation after having listened to you. You question her motives and the validity of her concern, and whether or not you think seeing a therapist would even be helpful. Yet almost unconsciously, you reach out for your phone, and before you realize what's happening, you're listening to the therapist's line ring. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you're listening to the slightly clinical but not unpleasant voice of a receptionist ask how she can help you. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor. You manage to stammer out. The conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you were fearing, and quicker than you can say Fjordenslip, which took me quite a while to say. You scheduled an appointment quicker than you realized. Appointment day rolls around. What do? Go to the appointment. We made it. I mean, we might as well, right? And I understand that in real life it's not this easy. I do understand that. Do we head to the therapist's office even though you're feeling totally unsure of what to expect? Sit in your car, terrified, and try to talk yourself into and out of going? Just the thought of going to your appointment ties your stomach in knots. You crawl back into bed. I feel like, but we should give the therapist an actual chance and a shot. You have your first session with your new therapist, Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with a disarming demeanor and patient eyes with the start of the slightest smile lines. She makes you feel comfortable fairly easily, which is a pleasant surprise after all your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still skeptical about all this, but you figure you might as well see where it goes. The hardest part, it seems, was taking the first step. You're still not sure if and how you're going to tell your family or your partner, but you figure you'll deal with it when that time comes. Either way, you feel relieved that you managed to see this through instead of being paralyzed with worry over it. Even if nothing comes of it, you did something you said you would instead of flaking out or running away. You're emotionally exhausted, and when you come home and collapse into bed, you sleep better that night than you have in a week. You're not sure if it's because you were so tired when you got home or if it's because of the therapist. Let's go ahead. I haven't even checked up on how our state is going. You are depressed, interaction is exhausting, and you are becoming more and more withdrawn. You are seeing a therapist even though you doubt anything she says could make you feel better, and you are not currently taking any medication for depression. It is an early Wednesday morning. Lately, you've developed a nasty habit of waking 10 to 20 minutes before your alarm rings, and unfortunately today is no exception. You lay in bed, each minute ticking closer to the wake up time, and passing on a swelling wave of ever encroaching dread. Sooner than you would like, your alarm blares with caustic inevitability. You frantically pound the snooze button and then retreat under your blankets as if the warmth of your comforter can shield you from the passage of time. You almost always have difficulty rising from bed, but today that simple task seems nothing short of Herculean. That's a hard word for me to say. After several snooze cycles, you decide that you just can't deal with work today. You're incapable of even rousing yourself from bed, let alone going into work and having to force yourself through the workday. Not to mention, you've snoozed so many times that it would be impossible for you to make it on time now. What do you do? Do we hop out of bed and start getting ready for work? You'll be late, but it's better than not going at all. Head into work. At least you can leave early if it gets too unbearable. Call your boss and tell him you're sick and you won't be in that day. I was going to say head into work late and just enjoy the kind of like break time off. So I guess we'll go with that one. Or call your boss and not go into work at all. In spite of the fact that your body is actively fighting you literally every step of the way, you somehow manage to drag yourself out of bed and make your way into work. Surprisingly, you end up only being about 5 minutes late and nobody seems to notice or care. Though when you woke up, the simple act of being even physically present at your job seemed like an impossibility, you were surprised by your own ability to push on through the day while you are far from enjoying or indeed even really coping with the dullness of your job today. You seem to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, and the time is nevertheless passing. Eventually, the end of the day rolls around. You head home, utterly exhausted, but at the same time, almost proud of yourself for having stuck it out. Sounds like me whenever I used to go to work. Oh, well. Already know I only have one option, but let's go ahead and read. It's 2 a.m. on a Sunday, and you have work in the morning. You roll over and see the sickly green glow of the time displayed on your LED alarm clock, and let out an exasperated sigh. You've been trying to fall asleep for over 3 hours now to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you're overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Worries about your job lead to worries about your future, lead to worries about your very identity. And you're unable to shake them off long enough to doze off. Your eyes won't even stay shut as your mind races through imagined scenarios going horribly wrong, which you promptly attribute to your general worthlessness. Your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any one of them. Your room is completely silent, but silence has given way to a loud static noise rattling around inside your head. Your heart beats loudly and you worry that it's beating a little too fast. You worry that if you focus strongly on your racing heart, you'll freak yourself out hard enough that you'll have a heart attack. You have to be awake in a mere 8 hours, and you know that your work is so much worse on only a few hours of sleep. What do? Do you force yourself to sleep, which isn't an option? Go to bed. It shouldn't be that hard. Just close your eyes. I can't even pick any of these. Go to your computer. Sleep is clearly not happening no matter how long you lay there. I've done this approach. This approach is one of the worst approaches. Alright, let's see what's going on. You get out of bed and head to your desk. Laying in bed with nothing but your thoughts to keep you company makes you feel like you're going insane. The harshness of light coming from the screen makes you squint as you turn it on, despite how often you find yourself in this exact situation. There have been so many nights lately just like this. As you begin reading a news story, an online friend of yours IMs you. Attic. You're up late again, I see. Yeah, can't sleep. Again. Thinking too much again? Thinking too much? You guessed it. Want to talk about it? You end up talking with Attic for quite some time about how you've been feeling. He's always been pretty easy to talk to about personal matters, and the added security of talking online helps. Being able to rethink what you say as you type it out and check it before you send it helps. Before you send it helps you gather your thoughts and you find it less intimidating in a way You find it less intimidating in a way to type it all into a prompt than say it out loud. I don't want to be that guy who thinks he can diagnose something because I read a Wikipedia article, but it kind of sounds like you might have depression. You should talk to someone about that, like a doctor. You pause. Are you transparent, or is it that you've gotten so used to talking about your feelings at this point? Your insomnia makes you a little paranoid, but you shake it off. We can do some research and see if there's a good doctor near you. It's not like you're going back to sleep anytime soon anyway. Might as well get something while you're awake. No, that's okay. Or actually, I have talked to somebody about it. Which we have, so we'll go ahead and say that. Oh, okay. I'm glad you're taking that step. I heard it's not an easy one. I know people kind of stuck at understanding this sort of stuff sometimes. But there's nothing wrong with having depression. You wouldn't be ashamed to have bronchitis or something. So there's no reason that you should be ashamed if it's in your brain. That's it. You should have no reason to be ashamed if your brain that's sick instead. You spend a few more minutes talking with Attic about your therapy and your feelings about it. He's incredibly supportive, and you're happy to find that you have a confidant that understands your illness and is willing to lend an ear when you're having nights like this. A little while later, you fall back in bed, kitten in tow, and find it easier to drift off to sleep. Even in therapy, you know you're still going to have nights like these sometimes. It's good to know that you have a friend who will help carry you through them. Aww. It's a chilly Thursday night and you've just gotten off work. This has felt like the longest days you faced in recent memory. Even though nothing exceptional has happened, a tone of minor things kept going wrong, and coworkers have tried your patience throughout the day. You considered leaving work early, but the last thing you wanted to do was deal with your insufferable boss on top of everything else. You're lost in thought on the commute home, and your feelings of frustration both with your life and the world around you build as you run into minor annoyances, like something bumping into you really hard as they walk by. Whew, man. By the time you get home, you're exhausted, and remember that these feelings were ones you identify as a negative feedback loop with your therapist. These pent-up feelings aren't dying down and are eating at you. You open your front door and stare at your apartment. An overwhelming feeling of exhaustion overcomes you, and you feel like your energy levels are low enough that they'll likely settle into a single activity tonight. What do you do? Reach out to someone close to you. Don't burden anyone with your problems and distract yourself. Well, you should never think that you're a burden to anyone, because someone is always willing to lend an ear. So go ahead and do that. Your head feels too noisy and you need to trade it for some actual conversation. Your therapist did say it was important to reach out to support your network, so you might as well give it a shot. Who do you call? Your coworker Sam, he's friendly enough, so he could be a good distraction. Your mother, she unconditionally loves you even if she hasn't always understood you. Alex, she's your girlfriend. Malcolm, he's family and fun to talk to. Oh, that's hard. Not Sam, not my mom, because mom will lead to dad, and dad's always usually more rash and brash about things, I guess. We'll talk to Alex. Oh, I don't know. We'll talk to Alex, okay. She needs to know what's going on, because I don't know if we told her yet. You dial Alex, who picks up after only 2 rings. You ask if she has time to talk, and she tells you she's just hanging out around in her PJs and is actually somewhat bored for once due to being caught up on her coursework. You try and figure out where to start with how you're feeling and overcome with missing her face. I miss your face, honey. You ask if she feels like grabbing some dinner, and you notice her barely contains surprise and delight on the other end of the line. You meet about half an hour later in an inexpensive diner not far from your apartment. While the food is not great, You're surprised by how much her mood seems to have elevated just being in her company. While at first you two were extremely hesitant to talk about your job situation for fear of being burdensome or sounding like a whiner, you see her listening intently to you with what even to you seems to be genuine concern. After winding down with a beer, you cautiously open up a little bit more about your feelings surrounding your job and how drained it leaves you feeling, how you feel like you're simply existing, selling days of your life for no real purpose. You surprise even yourself when you start talking about how frustrated and stymied you feel at your job. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. About how you feel passionately about things, but you feel like all your energy and capacity for creativity is getting leached out of you each and every day you work. You can't remember how long it's been since you've externalized this much raw emotion. The two of you spend several hours in that diner booth, long enough after you half-eaten food was cleared and the waitress stopped refilling your coffee cups. As you get up to leave, a sudden wave of self-consciousness washes over you and you suddenly feel incredibly awkward. Then Alex stands up and grabs you tightly around the wrist. You realize that, short of boring her with your endless rants, she's simply happy to have gotten the chance to spend time with you. Real time with you. It's been, by all accounts, incredibly too long since you've allowed yourself to open up to them like this, and there's almost a palpable feeling of closeness you allow yourself to hold on as you go to bed that night. Oh, I see medicine. It is an utter nondescript Wednesday afternoon, the type of afternoon that would completely fade from memory unless one made an active effort to persevere it. To preserve it. Not persevere it. To preserve it. As has become routine on Wednesdays, you are sitting on the couch in Dr. Melville's office. To your mild surprise, she begins the session by breaking her characteristic therapist's silence and begins speaking up right away. I wanted to start by saying I think it's great that you decided to come see me. An incredibly important first step, she begins. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the possibility of supplementing or substituting your treatment with medication. The mention of medication makes your ears perk up and you feel your heart race increasing. She continues. Many people find adding a pharmacological element to their treatment to be very helpful, and some often prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit a therapist at all. Providing you rely on your support network and are still reaching out to people, I would prefer if we kept talking should you still choose to start medication so that I can monitor your progress and adjust it as needed. But the choice is ultimately yours. I just want to run the option by you to gauge your thoughts on the matter, might be. Dr. Melville has just given me a lot to think about. What do I do? I don't know. Medication always just seems so much. We can accept the prescription. It's the first time we can actually choose any of the options. Accept a prescription as the way to augment your therapy. Tell her you'd like to try drugs instead of therapy. Blah blah. The thought of messing with your brain chemicals makes you uneasy. You'll stick with therapy. This whole therapy thing was overwhelming you, and this is the final straw. You're done with both. Definitely not the last one. I don't know. I'm maybe just too used to trying new things, especially to help. Accept a prescription as a way to augment your therapy. I think that should hopefully be good. You think the matter over long and hard. It's strange to think that recently none of this sort of thing was even on your radar, and here you are now being asked to make a decision about it. You're both skeptical and nervous, still getting over the initial shock of even just talking to a therapist, still over the years you've done enough entry-level reading on the subject to know that if it doesn't help you At least it probably won't hurt, right? After an intense and protracted period of internal vacillation, you decide to bite the bullet and go for it. You tell Dr. Melville that you'd like to try medication in addition to your therapy, and you spend about half an hour going over what you'll be taking and what you should expect from it. Thinking back on this decision later, you're pretty sure you had your fist tightly clenched the whole way through. It's hard to try new things, especially when it's helping yourself. At least, maybe that's my opinion. It's a Wednesday evening and you're visiting your parents for the holiday. You're visiting your parents' house for the holiday. A holiday. It's one of the handfuls of times during the years you drive out and visit your old hometown, and you've seen random people you've gone to school with around town. Whenever bumping into them, the usual short versions of what you've done since graduating are exchanged. You've gone through a few of these today and have been very aware of how much you feel you haven't accomplished. When you were in high school, you had such larger plans, and you feel like you failed to manifest most of them. Even if you had managed to, you're largely lost interest in what you thought you wanted to do in growing up. Now you're not even really sure what you want to do, and you felt like you're lacking ambition or drive to figure it out. Everyone you've caught up with seems to be so much happier than you, like they've got their lives all figured out, and you've kind of been feeling like a failure in comparison. Your brother Malcolm arrives with his wife in tow shortly before all sitting down at dinner. He's been traveling for his job lately, and you haven't seen him since the day he picked you up from the dentist. Your parents haven't seen him since before then. During dinner, they all catch up, and Malcolm talks about the amazing things he's done on the road. Your mother turns to you and asks, "What have you been doing since when you've seen them last?" "Oh, same old. Nothing really new is going on." Your mother makes a face. "Oh, nothing new? How long were you planning on staying at that job of yours?" "What do you say?" You lie and tell them what they want to hear, that you're actively looking for a more prestigious position, admit that you don't know what you want to do, excuse yourself to the bathroom. I get it's your parents. They're your parents, so we should tell them the truth, but I also know how hard it is to tell your mom something. We'll admit that we don't know what to do and hope that they support finding something to do. Actually, you start sheepishly, "I'm not really sure what I want to do right now." Your mom puts down her fork. "So what, you're planning on living the way you do for the rest of your life? How would you afford a house on that paycheck? What about kids?" That's why I didn't want to tell. Your father interrupts, lightly placing his hand over your mother's. "It's okay, Linda. Let the kids be what they are. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what to do in your 20s. I didn't get into construction till I was nearly 40. Your mother looks across the table at you, unsatisfied with her husband's reasoning. "I don't think it's normal for someone at that age to not have a path. You need to think hard about it, or you'll never make anything of yourself. Mom. Come on," Malcolm interjects. I've had that conversation before. This emotionally exhausts you, and you want to tell her that you are thinking hard and that not knowing what you're doing with yourself bothers you more than it could ever bother her, that sometimes it feels like you're lost in the woods, and that if you dropped dead in your apartment, the world wouldn't notice. You would want to make her understand that more often than not, you feel like an alien, like there isn't anywhere in this world that feels like a place where you belong. And you have no idea how to fix it or what to do. You wish you could find the words so she would understand that being looked down on for this kills you and drives home the feeling of you being a total outsider. Instead, you are very quiet for the rest of the meal and your mind goes numb. Everything inside you just feels exhausted. Man, that's tough. That's rough. It's raining tonight. You are hurrying through the rain to Alex's apartment at her behest. Though your pace is quick and the rain is steadily soaking up through your pants as you traverse the town, and it's darkening your already poor mood. The call came while you were at home after the day of dealing with the abnormally frustrating people. You'd spend the afternoon trying to unwind and get some work on your project done. Alex called and interrupted one of your try to make progress, get frustrated and not make progress, have a harder time making progress due to frustration, repeat loops, and you haven't fully shaken off the feeling of being annoyed with yourself from it yet. You knock on her door, and the third knock you hear a voice call from the apartment to come on in. I heard her tell me to come on in. Okay. As you cross the threshold, dripping rainwater all the way, you notice that the lights are turned down low in the very apartment. You squint to navigate as you clutch your damp umbrella, but end up hitting your shin on the side table, mumbling a profanity under your breath. You barely make out Alex emerging from the hallway, clad in what looks like a robe, and the bare skin of her legs peering out underneath. "Why don't you come in and warm up?" she asks in her designated, slightly cheesy, sexy voice. After a beat of silence, she states more naturally, "My roommates are out of town for the weekend, so I thought it might be nice to have a little fun while they're away." You appreciate her affection, but you're too wrapped up in your own negative feedback loops to be in the mood right now. What do? Try to unwind with her before getting physical, suggest you do something else instead, tell her you're not in the mood, or let go of your stress and be intimate with your girlfriend. Let's try to unwind. I feel like this could really help a nice physical affection. You look at her standing, barely lit, and you notice a few candles scattered around the apartment. It occurs to you that she has tried to make this night special for the two of you. Even though you have a tight knot of antisocial frustration in your stomach, seeing how she cares makes you want to try to melt it away so you can show her how much you care that she's going through all this trouble. However, you desperately need to shift gears before that's even possible. "You look amazing. Let's have a drink together," you suggest, hoping this will give you the push you need to get into the mood. You go into the kitchen and pour the two of you drinks, trying to focus on letting go of your bad mood. You sit down on the couch next to her and she cuddles up to you instantly. "What should we toast to?" she asks as she takes her drink. You think for a moment, passing up the cheesy "to us" option. Never a bad option. You say what's on your mind, letting go of your bad day. "To tonight." The two of you cheers and you ask her about her day. Conversation turns flirtatious and the two of you find yourselves in the bedroom. Shortly after, you find that you're having trouble getting into things physically with her and remember that diminished arousal was a possible effect of your medication. You'd hope that you were part of the population that wouldn't be affected by it, but it seems as that was not the case. However, you are still able to enjoy the closeness with Alex as you fall asleep happily together. I mean, dang it. It's early winter, and even though it's not particularly late, the time for the year has lent the sky almost a prematurely darkened cast. Day after day, and just like today, you trudge home from your new job and increasingly Day after day, just like today, you trudge home from a job you increasingly come to hate. On this day, your job misery seems to have reached critical mass, and not even shedding a rain-laden, and uncomfortable work clothes helps you unwind from your workday. You collapse on your couch, blank and numb, while your job always seemed to have an unpleasant reality of existence. It was a position you sort of fell into unexpectedly, never intending to work there long term. It's getting harder and harder to keep it up. While it's certainly not your dream job, you've always sort of stuck it out of necessity before, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that you couldn't even begin to imagine what else you could do. You find yourself face to face with a question you just can't ignore. Is your complacency worth the price of this level of misery? What do you do? Get proactive, polish off your resume, and start looking for jobs that... Why can't we just do that? Try to at least be productive by focusing your efforts on your project tonight. Aimlessly turn the classifieds. No, we're doing so good. We're doing really good. Let's keep it up. Although those other two are very enticing. You sit down at your computer to blow off some steam, but you are surprised to find your thoughts drifting to your long neglected project. You talk yourself into opening it up and taking a look for the first time in what must be weeks. For whatever reason, your anger that you've been feeling towards your day job seemed to be converted into pure passion as you seem to be overflowing with ideas tonight. It is as if you've got the buildup of ideas that haven't gotten out, and now you're in the zone. While you don't get an unnatural amount of work done, you do work for a solid couple of hours, and it really feels great. What's more, you share some stuff across your social media networks, and you receive quite a bit of positive feedback, which makes you feel great. When you go to bed that night, you tell yourself that your job may suck, but at least you've got something you really care about that you can put effort into and feel really good about yourself. In fact, as you're falling asleep, you can barely even remember your workday. That's nice. I should probably check. How the fuck am I gonna do this? Sorry, that was kind of funny. It's a little past 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You're at your computer, frustration levels peaked, rubbing your eyes and sighing heavily. You're working on our project from your job that is stretched to wit's end, trying to meet your looming deadline. As it lurks closer and closer, you're seriously doubting your ability to get it done. You're dragging your feet a little at work due to your complete lack of energy lately. In spite of wanting to do a good job, you find yourself unable to push past it and feel horribly useless for it. You slide your hands off your face at your screen as it beeps at you. Hey, you there? I really need to talk to someone about something. You feel like you're getting nowhere with your current task, and it could probably use a break. However, you know that you have a history of getting distracted and then losing motivation to pick it up back again afterward. What do? Multitask? No. Tell Attic you're busy. Try to regain your focus and don't answer. We're going to answer Addict because he was kind enough to answer us earlier. And I feel like that's the right thing to do. You're feeling like you have hit a brick wall with your task, so why not take a break and try helping a friend out? Hey, what's up? Oh, good, you're there. I just found out I was cheated on. I don't know what to do. Oh no, that's horrible! I can't... Oh no, that's horrible! The two of you talk for a long time, and you lend a shoulder to your friend. You give him space to rant, to cry, and most importantly, to be able to voice his inner turmoil. You give him your full attention and talk to him as though you talk him through what his options are for what he does next. You keep him from doing something rash, and the two of you decide it's best for him to sleep on it before doing anything. Exhausted, he departs for the bed and thanks you for being there to talk with him. As you close the IM, you feel horribly sorry for your friend, but happy you were able to help. It serves as a tangible reminder that you are capable of being useful to someone instead of solely being a mess that needs everyone else's help. You boot up your work project and find that you're suddenly able to get solid progress done that night. Yes! Yes. Awesome. Alright, let's go ahead and check up on our progress. You are definitely still depressed, but things are getting better. Whatever you're doing seems to be working. You really feel like you're taking steps in an effective positive to affect positive change in your life. You now seem to enjoy seeing your therapist. Between giving you a chance to talk things out and the CBT techniques she shares with you, you find your sessions extremely helpful. You have been taking your medication regularly, and while you feel You were skeptical at first. It's hard to argue with the fact that you're feeling better than you have in a long time. That makes me really happy. It's a sunny Saturday afternoon. You're deep in thought on your way home from therapy. However, you notice this time that you're not in the same negative feedback loops you usually get trapped in when being in this introspective. You realize that although you still have your bad days, your lows aren't quite as low as they used to be, and your antidepressant bottles roll across your dashboard as you make a left turn. You've been on this medication for quite a while now after a period of trying a few different kinds. Though you still have minor side effects, they've overall become an unnoticed part of your life. You feel as if your life has generally changed for the better, and you begin to wonder if you need them anymore. You don't feel as much despair or hopelessness, and you hate yourself a lot less these days. Maybe it's time to stop taking these, you think. I seem to not really need them anymore. What do? Continue taking your medication, or get off the meds? In this case, I feel doctor knows best, and I tend to listen to the doctor normally. You have the realization that you can't be sure if it's a general life change that's making you better or if it's just a sign that the medication is working. You decide against discontinuing your meds. It's not really a lesson you'd like to learn the hard way, and the side effects of this particular kind are negligible. The next time you see Dr. Melville, you'll tell her about this. She informs you that this is a common train of thought that people who have begun using medication to help them manage their depression experience, and that you've managed to dodge a bullet because it generally ends poorly. Yes! Making the right choices. She also asks you to talk to her before making any decisions about your medication in the future. I felt like that was going to be the better choice in the long run. Again, I really know that that's not that easy in real life, and I wish it was. It's yet another sleepless Thursday night. You're at Alex's apartment, wide awake in bed as she's sleeping peacefully beside you. She fell asleep hours ago, and you've been laying here, unable to shut your brain long enough to fall asleep. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You've added the feelings of insecurity about your relationship to the rest of the noise in your head, keeping you up tonight. It was kind of a tense night between the two of you. You arrived after a stressful day of work, as you made dinner together, you barely said a word. You were stuck in your own head and had a hard time really being present with her as your thoughts turned all of the ways you feel like you're being present with her as your thoughts turn to all of the ways you feel you're deficient at being a good person and beating yourself up immensely for each one. She told you she could tell you were in one of your moods, and she wouldn't push you, but missed talking to you as the two of you sat on the couch together. You wanted to tell her how much you love her, but you couldn't make the words come out right and ended up sounding defensive instead. As you lay there next to her, you trace your fingers across her arm lightly enough to not wake her. You still haven't explained your depression to her, or how you started seeing a therapist, or that you've been taking medication, and it's starting to feel more and more like a secret you're keeping instead of something she simply doesn't know about you yet. It's becoming more and more apparent that it's impacting your relationship with her. You feel guilty about this. However, you're also terrified that if she knew exactly how fucked up you are, that she would leave you. You already worry that she's only with you because she doesn't realize how terrible of a person you are yet. You're afraid that this would be the final thing to expose you. She stirs in her sleep and squints as she opens her eyes. With the confusion that comes with waking up, she asks you if you're awake, and then if everything's okay. Open it to her with ease, which no matter what is not easy. Tell her about your situation, tell her it's nothing, and that she should go back to sleep. Let's get it off our chest. Communication is key. feel like a jerk for accidentally waking her up, but you're afraid that if you put things off any longer, you won't find the strength to tell her everything later. No, actually, everything isn't okay. Can I tell you something? Something important? Alex sits up, rubbing her eyes. For the rest of the night, you lay side by side, holding hands as you tell her everything. You tell her how it's more than just feeling sad sometimes, how you feel trapped by your own mind sometimes, how sometimes you feel nothing at all, and how you can't shake it off. You tell her how you've started going to therapy and how you feel embarrassed to talk about it, and how it works out for you. She listens the entire time, occasionally asking questions about how this or that works, or asking you to explain something further. She squeezes your hand and tells you she understands, and she's sad that you didn't tell her sooner. After laying silent for a moment, the weight of what you did hits you. You desperately want to tell her something, to tell her that how she's feeling about to tell you how she's feeling about all of this, but you're too afraid of what the answer would be if you asked. You start convincing yourself that now that she knows everything, she's going to leave. There's no way someone could deal with how you really are. So how can I help? What do you need me to do? She asks. You think for a second, and the answer you come up with in despair is, I honestly don't know. I wish I knew how to fix things, but I don't know that I don't know that you can do anything. I think it's something I just have to live with. She looks at you with sad eyes before kissing you on the forehead. Then I'll live with it, with you. I don't know how you could possibly love me. She rolls over and wraps her arms around your neck, settling her head on top of yours. You don't need to. Just know that I do. Dude, that makes me so happy. Oh, man. It's Friday night and you're laying across your bed feeling pathetic. As you were leaving work tonight, a group of coworkers asked you if you wanted to join them for drinks. Feeling antisocial and put on the spot, you declined. You have a habit of doing this. Sorry, my lip itches. You have a habit of doing this. You're so often convinced that you're weird and terrible and that any innovation to hang out will end in disappointment for those inviting you. You never feel like you know enough to act in group things, and you feel like a total creep since it seems so naturally to anyone who isn't you. You find yourself petrified of breaking some unknown social rule that you don't often go out. Now, however, you find yourself alone at home. Your brain has begun telling you how pathetic and sad you are for being unable to be just like a normal person and go out with nice people. You can't figure out why you can't just go out and meet people and enjoy yourself. At the same time, you're also feeling like no one would possibly want to hang out with you if they really knew you because of how dull and weird you are anyway. You try your typical strategy and boot up Netflix to distract yourself from these feelings, but frustration with yourself builds and you realize you have to do something else with your night. Anything else to take your mind off of how awful and lonely you feel right now. Do we see if Alex is online? Do we see if Attic is online? Do we call Alex? Do we drink? Do we go out somewhere alone, or do we play with our cat? Oh, we can play with the kitty. Let's check up on Attic after that whole mess he was going through. You sit down at the computer and open the chat client. Attic is indeed online. The two of you catch up briefly before you start passing links to news stories and weird YouTube videos back and forth. Eventually he asks if you would like to play a multiplayer game with him, and you start the download. Realizing that you haven't eaten yet, you tell him that you'll be back in time for the download to finish after you've made yourself dinner. At the kitchen, you notice the time on your microwave several hours more than you had expected had passed, and you've just only realized it. Though it's not going out to the bar, you feel like this has taken the edge off the loneliness that you were experiencing earlier. Even though he's an internet friend, sometimes when you are too down to be social, he's the perfect person to talk to. You can connect with him on a meaningful level, and you found it easier to be yourself while talking to him than you do in most face-to-face interactions. When you're down, you find yourself using this as another reason to feel like a loser, as though you could only make friends if they didn't have to deal with you in person. But for now, you're relieved to be around him. You finish making your sandwich and sit back down at the computer. Your download has finished and Attic is waiting on you to start. It's a cold Saturday afternoon. You've just arrived at Alex's apartment, and you're happy to finally see her after a week of absence due to your schedules not lining up due to work and school. You hug her in the doorway, and she breaks away sooner than normal and sits down on the couch as you take off your sneakers and lay them in the usual place right next to hers. There's something else hoping we could talk about, actually, she says. You instantly worry that you're being blindsided by a breakup conversation due to the sudden shift in tone, but she quickly smiles and puts you at ease once she sees the color leave your face. It's nothing bad, I promise. Scared me, holy cow. With that, she leads you over to the couch and sits on the other end of it facing you. So I hope this doesn't freak you out, and if you feel like things are going too fast, tell me. She talks faster than usual and fidgets. We seem to have a lot of weeks like this, and they really suck. I was thinking I'd ask, since things are so strong with us, what are your thoughts on moving in together? It takes a few seconds to sink in, and leaves you a bit shocked when it does. You were worried that she wanted to spend less time with you, not more. Do you want to? You ask. Well, yeah, I do. I mean, we'd have to sort out logistics and everything, but those things are all things we can take care of. You start to walk through the steps of imagining you two living together. You love the thought of being able to wake up to her every day and seeing her so often. However, the more you picture it, the more a few concerns become apparent. There are things she's insulated from, like the days you don't feel like you can even get out of bed, the nights that your medication keeps you from being able to sleep, all the moments you're stuck staring at the wall, completely out of energy and feeling nothing. How would she be able to handle that? How quickly would she want to get away? So, she starts, what do you think? I think it's a good idea. Do you think it's a good idea? I would be ecstatic for that situation. Tell her you want to, but you have concerns, and discuss them honestly. Tell her you don't think it's a good idea for you right now. Tell her decide to move in regardless of your worries. Let's communicate. We'll communicate. Alright. You're really worried that if Alex were to live with you, she wouldn't be able to deal with your days of being unable to get out of bed, or nights where you can't do anything but stare at the wall and panic. Even though you discuss your situation with her, you still fear that she doesn't realize the depths of how bad it gets. It's one thing for you to detail how you feel sometimes, and for her to see it pop up occasionally, and it's an entirely different situation for it to be something she has to live with alongside you. Well, I'd like to, but I think it's best if we talk about it a bit more before committing to a decision. Though she seems a little defeated, I'm so sorry. You make it clear that you're not making excuses and you actually mean that you want to talk. You reiterate a lot of what you told Alex that night, and although she gets a little defensive and tells you that she knows all of that already, she confirms that she is willing to help you and sort through your issues. I feel like you forget I love you sometimes, and I know there will be bad days, and I'd rather try to work through them with you. We can figure all of this out together. Her words sway you, and you can't help but hold her close to you. Oh. It's December, and you've returned to your parents' house and celebrate the holidays with your family. Out of the living room, you can see a gentle flurry of snow drifting down to meet the pristine blanket of white from yesterday's unexpected Christmas Eve snowfall, and you quietly laugh to yourself at how incredibly cliche it seems. Still, as you sit down for dinner, you can't help but notice how being surrounded by family and the overly kitschy atmosphere your mom decorations have created have actually made you feel relaxed and almost comfortable. Your mom is running around frantically checking the oven and the stockings and just generally trying family time it up. While your dad sits at the head of the table drinking a beer and laughing with your brother Malcolm, his wife Karen is there too, whom you've always gotten along well with, and your parents even agreed to let you bring your kitten along. She's being darted in and out of people's legs and hopping into laps all night. As you thoughtfully munch away at your turkey, listening to conversations around you, your thoughts drift back over the last few months. You think about how hard things have gotten, replaying over in your head some of your worst as well as some of your best memories. It seems like a lot of these things just came to a head over the past few months, with a sudden flurry of relationship turmoil and professional anxiety, social stress, and above all the omnipresent sense of weight that it seems like you have just recently become aware of. You're drawn out of your reverie by your dad's familiar booming laugh as some cheesy comment Malcolm made seems to have hit its mark. Sitting at the table, you're suddenly immensely glad for the chance to be able to ignore everything for an evening and not have to struggle trying to explain yourself for once. Fortunately, everyone seems to be content with laughing at each other's jokes and discussing favorite sports teams, and for a while you think you'll be able to get through dinner without any embarrassing personal intrusions. But no sooner did the thought cross your mind than the table conversation trickles off, leaving the slightly awkward silence to descend upon the dinner. "So how are you doing these days?" your mom asks pointedly. It's just a simple question, and one that you seem to have had to answer countless times recently. You take a moment to collect your thoughts, then look up to take a deep breath. Well, okay. This is a long novel. I'm actually really enjoying it. This is a really good story, and it's interactive and all that fun stuff. You've never really thought of yourself as a fighter, and even to say it now sounds hokey, but there's a hair in my eye. It was hokey, but looking back on the past few months to where you are now, it really does feel like you've endured some immense struggle, and you look at where you are now with a sense of something that isn't quite pride. You still hate your job and find it unpleasant, but you're surprised to find that going into work every day is no longer a monumental challenge. You started adopting some clever techniques like taking short 2-minute breaks every hour to break up the monotony. God dang it, the monotony. And you now view your job as just 8 hours short of your day. A compartmentalization technique Dr. Melville told you about that you found actually works quite well. This job isn't what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you've started actively looking for other positions, even attending a couple of preliminary interviews. It's awesome. You started making an effort to go out with your friends more, with the social scene still makes you very uncomfortable sometimes, and you're more and more able to let yourself just enjoy the company of your friends. In fact, your relationship with many of them has increased over the past little while. You still definitely have days where you flake out or don't feel like hanging out, but for the most part, your friends are understanding and appreciate your communication. By far, your biggest change you noticed has been in your relationship with Alex. You were terrified of talking to her about everything at first, but looking back, you feel like it has only strengthened your relationship. She was always supportive of you emotionally, but the two of you have been even more in sync, and it's really starting to feel like you're building a life together. Oh my God, it makes me so happy. It even seems like the two of you have been more concentrated effort to sync up your schedules and have been spending more and more of your downtime with each other, pretty soon you think moving in together may be a very real possibility. Dr. Melville has commented on how well you seem to be doing, and whether a result of therapy, the medication, or both, you can't help but agree. With all that seems to have improved recently, With all that seemed to improve recently, it's sometimes difficult for you to think that you still have bad days, sometimes even really bad days. They serve as a stark reminder that the fact that this is something you'll likely have to deal with for the rest of your life. Depression is a battle, and though you're certainly ahead in this fight, you know the battle isn't going to be over. Sometimes even Alex can tell when things are going rough, despite your best efforts. To the contrary, while you know that your depression can never be cured, you have a very strong support network of friends and even Malcolm, and armed with a newfound confidence in your friends and family, you accept that though the road may be rocky, it is at very least not solitary. You meet with your mom's gaze from across the table and muster up a smile. "I'm good, Mom," you tell her. She says nothing, but you can feel her smile from across the room. Epilogue. We really want to thank you for taking time to play Depression Quest. We realize that it may not be the most enjoyable game you've ever played or even the easiest, and we sincerely appreciate the involvement. If you'd like to contribute to the developers and to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, then click here to do so. Well, Depression Quest does not have an end, really. There is no neat resolution to depression, and it was more important that Depression Quest's own resolution reflect that. Instead of a tidy ending, we wanted to provide a series of outlooks to take moving forward, and after all, that's all we can really do with depression. Just keep moving forward, and at the end of the day, it's our outlook and support from people just like you that makes it all the difference in the world. Thanks again. Oh, that was so good! Oh my gosh! That was so great. And if you do have depression, it's nothing that should be looked at with jokes or anything. It's a real thing, and I understand that it's a battle that's fought every day by some people, and sometimes it's a losing battle, but you just gotta keep fighting. But before I start to ramble and everything, if you did enjoy the video, go ahead and like and subscribe. If there's anything else that you wanted to see me play, because this was recommended by me, go ahead and leave it in the comments. And until next time.